Hey, 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 how are you doing out there? Right, so do you like my t-shirt? Do you like this? I am the ATS bot. We can talk about ATS another time if you like, but yes, loving my t-shirt. It's one of my favorites. How are we all? I am very sorry to say that it's just me today. There is no Yevgeny, sadly. Miss Yevgeny, love my partner in crime. He's not joining today. So Artem, if you were hoping to send Yevgeny a message, I can see that is characters that are not the Roman alphabet. So he's not here. Sorry. You might want to write that in English and then I'll be able to help. So hello, everyone. I hope we are all well. It looks like you can hear me because I've had some people message hello off the back of me jumping in. So if my lips are moving and you can't hear anything, please do let me know. But otherwise, I'm going to assume that you can hear me and I will get on with things. So I'm sorry I am a little bit late today. I was doing some coaching, and as I said, Yevgeny is not here today. So Mondays are always a little bit crazy for me. Let me introduce myself briefly and then we will get on with things. So, if you didn't know already, I am Gigi. I know my hair is a different color if you've been watching the videos on the YouTube channel, but it is in fact me. I am an ex Amazon bar raiser. I was at Amazon for about 5 years. And let me tell you about how I kind of came about to doing the day one careers thing. So when I was working and interviewing at Amazon, you do loads of interviewing at Amazon, particularly if you're there at a time where of large growth, which I was. Became a bar raiser as well, so do even more interviews. I think I interviewed maybe 3 or 4 times a week. The average Amazonian probably does it one interview a week. And I started to notice there was a significant difference in candidates. Some people seemed so prepared. They knew the language. They knew what we were looking for. They knew the buzzwords. They knew kind of what buttons to push. And other people who clearly just did not have that type of knowledge. And I became curious, as any good Amazonian would, as to why this was. And I started to ask people, like, okay, you seem well prepared. What did you do for your preparation? And I discovered that some people, and this was correlating with the people who were doing better than others, were getting Amazon interview preparation from ex-Amazonians. So again, curious me started to look into, well, what does that look like? How much does it cost? And I discovered like there were eye-watering amounts of dollars being exchanged for this type of preparation, like $2,500, like for some kind of, maybe a monthly program or something like that, which I just felt uncomfortable with. I didn't think it was fair. I thought it was against kind of the concept of inclusion and diversity. So I just thought I'll start a YouTube channel and start giving it all away. So that's what I did. I started a YouTube channel and then got lots of support from Amazon, which was great. And then I left Amazon for reasons that I'm not going to go into now, nothing to do with Amazon, all about my personal life, midlife crisis, COVID, blah, blah, blah. And just thought, oh, maybe I can turn this into just a little bit of a side gig, just to see if maybe I can cover the gap in bills when I wasn't working, and set up this little business, which was originally the Amazon Interview Whiz. Digital courses, coaching for candidates, really trying to make it as accessible as possible. I then met Yevgeny, who was doing something similar, and we decided that we would join forces because we were more powerful together and we could reach more candidates together. So Day One Careers is the business that we run. We have like hours and hours, as I know you know, of content here on YouTube, post regularly on LinkedIn, tips on Amazon interviewing. I have a pathetic TikTok account. Pathetic, like 44 followers. It was better before, and then TikTok cancelled my account because apparently I was under 14, and now it's pathetic. So if you're on TikTok, please do find me and maybe follow me and make me feel a little bit more loved. And we do these sessions, right? So you can ask me any question that you like at this session. I'll do my very best to answer it. Couple of requests, and please do start putting your questions here in the comments box on the right. There's a few of us here at the moment. Just chuck your questions down there. Some caveats. Please don't ask me really broad questions like, Gigi, I've got a program manager interview at Amazon tomorrow. Any tips? Because my answer is going to be, yeah, whole YouTube channel full of them. Equally, please don't ask me super specific questions, i.e., hey, Gigi, I've got a front-end network engineering interview tomorrow. in Japan, can you tell me what technical questions I might be asked? Because the answer is definitely going to be no. There are so many, tens of thousands of job families now in Amazon, and there's no way I could possibly know all of the kind of specific technical requirements and interview requirements at that level. We can talk about the leadership principles till we're blue in the face. It's common for everybody, but anything that specific, I'm afraid I cannot help. But I will let you know if I have questions that I feel I can't reply to. So on that note, please do kind of start asking the questions. I'll say hi to people as they come along. Yeah. Oh, can I drop your TikTok username so we know how to follow you? I can. And you know what? I think I might have made a chronic mistake with TikTok in terms of the username that I set up, because I think it's under Gigi. Where is my TikTok now? I'm not a very good. I'm obsessed with TikTok. Oh, noisy, right? I am obsessed with TikTok. Originally, I was so anti TikTok, and my kids are watching it all the time, and I kept blocking their phones. And then I thought, oh, I better check out this TikTok thing and see what it's all about. And now I'm obsessed. I spend a couple of hours a day looking at TikToks. I've learned some amazing things, though, amazing recipes and things like that. So I am Gail Gallagher 60 on TikTok, but it does also say Day One Careers. So hopefully, if you search Day One Careers, you should be able to find me on TikTok. If not, it's Gail Gallagher 60. But yes, I am TikTok obsessed. So if anyone has really good TikTok people that they follow, do let me know, because hey, I need to spend more time on TikTok. All right, so I'm losing followers because you're obviously getting bored of my prattling. So I will stop prattling and start answering questions. So, oh, I've got no questions yet. Come on, folks, bang your questions down. It is a bit quiet this week, and it has been quiet for the past couple of weeks because I'm sure you all know Amazon, like most other organizations now, are taking a little bit of a step back in terms of their hiring trajectory. So some of you may have found that roles that you have applied for have now been closed and withdrawn. Some of you may be finding that it's harder to find roles on the Amazon jobs board. This is very true. I want to let you know, if you have had a role that you were interviewing for frozen, it's probably the best description for it. I have been through these cycles before with Amazon, and what I will say is I will put money on the fact that they will probably get going again sometime in January next year. That's usually what happens. Indications from some of my pals on the inside is that I'm probably not that far wrong, and that many of the full-time recruiters are being told that for now we are settling down, but we're going to find you other projects to do in the meantime, because we do expect to be ramping up in the new year. So if you're one of those people, don't worry. If you were in the middle of your process and now the rec is closed, don't worry, hang on in there. It will pick up again. All right, so there are a few questions here. Thank you. It's really awful when I come on and there are no questions. I feel very rejected. So let me have a look and see what we've got. So, okay, Philippe. Have you got two parts to your question here, Philippe? You just had your first interview loop with your hiring manager. He made your phone interview as well. Over the loop interview, we went over 3 different principles. Oh, okay, yeah, sorry, there is a question there. Sorry, I just wasn't reading it properly. So hey Philippe, welcome. So you had your first loop with your hiring manager, and he did your phone interview as well. This is very normal. It's very, very normal that the hiring manager sees you in the kind of the top end of the funnel, the early interviews, and then comes back and meets you again at loop. So that's very normal. And you did 3 different leadership principles. Is that normal? Sometimes. Generally, the best practice is for an interviewer to only have 2 leadership principles, and to aim to ask you a minimum of 3 questions. That said, some people only ask 1 question, other people ask like 6 or 7 questions. There's best practice, and then quite frankly, there's what people decide they're going to do. Mostly people get allocated 2 leadership principles. It's not it's not like incredibly crazy that anyone will be allocated a 3rd leadership principle. It can happen. The other thing is maybe they didn't get 3 leadership principles and they actually got 2, and you've just misinterpreted one of the questions and come to the conclusion that it was a 3rd leadership principle, unless they've told you specifically what leadership principles that they're looking for. So Philippe, There are ranges within the norm, and what you're describing to me is not materially outside the norm. So nothing to worry about, nothing special, peculiar, extraordinary about your experience. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next question. Okay, Nick Bitters. Nick Bitters. Okay, what's that? Is that like a? I can't tell what that is in your little profile picture there. It looks like a record, but I don't think it is a record. Anyway, all right. So you're applying for a business development role in Madrid. Hola. You wonder how important is the data in the stories linked with the leadership principles. Okay, so the reason why you hear all of the time that Amazon wants data is what they're trying to do is two things. The first and most important thing is to establish that you are someone who has impact on your business, right? You deliver things that materially move the dial for your organization. And the best and most obvious illustration of how much you move the dial is to use data, i.e., metrics, KPIs, whatever definition you want to use here. So you can say, I started at point X, and by the time I'd finish, I am at point Y. So then they know specifically that you have been able to have an impact on your organization. Oh, my tea's just arrived. Thank you. Isn't that nice? My husband just bought me my tea and some biscuits. I'm such a lucky lady. Although he's left the tea bag in. Oh my God. Do people, I hate it when they leave the tea bag in. I'm so ungrateful. Sorry. So impact, right? Metric from X to Y. So that's the first reason why you want metrics. The second reason why they like data is, banal as this might sound, it makes you sound like a very Amazonian person. Amazonians and Amazon are very specific in their articulation of circumstance. So if you're in an Amazon meeting, you would never say sales went up, sales went down. We did better this month than we did last month. Amazonians will say sales went up from X to Y. So that's like this, that's X percentage. Usually, month on month, we are up X percent. Year on year, we are down Y percent. We are up from metric X to metric Y. It's very specific as a culture in terms of how they think about information. It's very, very data specific driven. So the more that you are able to tell your story with that type of data specificity intrinsic to it, the more Amazonian you sound. Okay, so now I've set up kind of why these things are important. How important it is a little bit of a how long's a piece of string question. I cannot articulate that contribution wise to the overall decision, having strong data points contributes 20% of the of the weighted contribution to 100% decision. It doesn't exist. So all I can say to you, Nick Peters, is it is important enough that I tell all of my candidates to try and make sure that whenever they quote a result, they have an impact noted from a metric point of view, that when they talk about performance or outcomes or inputs or anything like that, that they do specifically talk about a number. I literally just had this conversation with one of my candidates I was coaching, which was why I was a little bit late for the session today, to be very specific. In her case, we were talking and she said, we didn't, we used to have not so many of these incidents every single month, but by the end of 2020, we had a lot more. And I was like, no, you can't say that. What you need to say is we usually have only 2 incidents per quarter, but by the end of 2020, we were up to 8 incidents per quarter. The second sounds like an Amazonian. The first does not sound like an Amazonian. So I hope that helps. Probably didn't give you the specific data you were looking for, but quite frankly, that doesn't exist. Okay. Oh, hey. How am I going to pronounce your name? Arnaud? I'm so sorry if I've mispronounced that. I'm just going to blanket apologize to everybody for mispronouncing your names. Please apologize to your parents for me. I'm going to butcher all of your names. You have an interview with Audible for EM level. I'm not sure what EM level means, executive management. I don't know. Do I know if they follow the same principles as Amazon? Yes, they absolutely do, because they're an Amazon company. Just because they're branded Audible, it doesn't make them any different. So if you were to apply for Audible or Whole Foods or any other Amazon owned company, Amazon kind of majorly owned company, they will follow the leadership principles. Yes. So, yep, it is an Amazon interview that you are going into. Good luck. Okay, next question. Okay. Detor, welcome back. You were here last week, weren't you? I don't remember if you had managed to secure the role since last week. Don't remember. But congratulations. I'll pretend that you hadn't yet got the role last week and that this is new news to me. So yay! Congratulations. Okay. How much is too much? Initially, you asked for a 20% total comp increase. Okay. So it doesn't work like that, in the sense of I cannot and no one can tell you what is a reasonable percentage increase, because Amazon isn't thinking in that way. They're not thinking, oh yes, we'll be willing to flex X percent. Amazon has their ranges that they are willing to, that is a prefix range that they will pay you, and based on how you did in your loop, other data points that you've provided in terms of your expectations, or whether you have any competing offers, lots of data points. The comp and benefits analyst will come up with a number and pass that number over to the recruiter. What is too much from your perspective is really about, well, what's the gap between what they offered you and what you think is fair market pay for your services. And anything below what you believe is fair market pay for your services is not too much to ask. It's quite conceptual. I appreciate that. But you have to have a number that you think this is the fair number, this is the right number, and that's the number that you need to target. And somewhere, hopefully you reach that. And if you don't reach that, you'll come somewhere close to it, and then you'll have to decide for yourself whether that gap is worth fighting over or walking away from. But there is no percentage number that anyone can give you that says this is a reasonable percentage to ask on top of what you've been offered, because Amazon isn't thinking in that way. Hope that helps to a degree. Okay. Moving on then. I'm sorry, this is a bit stop and start because Yevgeny isn't here. Usually we swap between us, but I will have to read faster than I usually would. Okay. Oh, Carl. Okay. Hi, Carl. So you've got your first interview and loop in just over an hour. You've watched my videos. Good. Any last minute tips or advice you should consider? Hard to say because I don't know what you've been paying attention and what you haven't. So I guess my last tip and advice is breathe, relax. It's just an interview. I know you've probably worked really, really hard and prepared really hard. And I know in this economic climate, jobs are hard to come by. We talked about that at the beginning, but it is just a job interview. So breathe, relax, and bring data. To the point that we were having earlier with the question earlier, those data points, they're important. So make sure you bring those data points to your interview. Good luck. I hope it goes well for you. Okay. Darren, I can't answer that question. That is a technical question, which I do not cover. I'm not a technical expert when it comes to SDEs and SDMs. So probably I would suggest that, where would you go for that type of answer? I would suggest that, oh, sorry, Darren, I'll bring you up here. If you really want to understand the answer to that, I would go and look at sdeskills.com. It's a voluntary organization where a whole bunch of SDEs from across big tech all get together and help each other out with interview prep and solving problems and things like that. So if you haven't already gone and paid a visit to sdeskills.com, I suggest you do, because full of SDEs, SDMs who will be able to answer that question for you. All right. Hi, Mr. Mint 94. Mr. Mint 94. Now, does 94 mean that you were born in 1994? Because if it does, I think the jumper on the back of my chair here is older than you. I have these kind of crises about how old I really am when I realize that I literally have like shoes and jumpers that are older than a huge number of people that are currently very relatively senior and well ensconced in their careers. I don't know when I got so old. Anyway, I digress. You're starting as an L5 next week. You got an offer one day after you had your final interview. Is it normal to receive feedback that fast? Um, mm, you got the feedback that fast because the debrief was set up very quickly after your interview. I have no data, and no data is published in Amazon in terms of the average length of time that it takes to get a debrief done. Debriefs are set up even before the actual interview is undertaken. So you would have always got that feedback one day after your interview, whether it was positive or negative, because they already had that meeting set in the diary. So it's kind of an irrelevant data point that you got your positive feedback one day after. It does not mean you're a superstar. And if you had got a negative feedback, it would not have meant that you're a catastrophic failure either. It's a non-causal, it's a correlating data point, not a causal data point. Okay. Oh, it's a record. Ah, okay. Nick Peters. It looks like a cool record. What is it? Let me know what record it is. It looks cool. Ah, Lego My Ego. Oh, you just got notified that I was live like 15 minutes later. Ah, how annoying. Thanks, Lego My Ego. It's good to see ya. Hi. Long-standing friend, Lego My Ego. Thank you for joining. It's always lovely to see you. All right. I love a silly question. There are no silly questions, Anchor. I promise. I just need to drink this actually. 2 seconds. I'll try not to slurp. Lovely. Thank you. I've been working since about 2 o'clock nonstop, so I haven't eaten or drunk anything, hence the delivery. All right. Having a loop tomorrow. Ooh, fingers crossed. Silly question. No silly questions. Can we ask for a break between the interviews? Yes, you most certainly can. And usually, oh, you have 3 back-to-backs. Yeah. So usually you have some back-to-backs and then there's a break if you've got like a full day session, and then you have a break and then you have your afternoon session or whatever. So yeah, for sure. If you need to take a couple of minutes just to go to the bathroom, or have a snack or something like that, absolutely. Your interviewer won't mind. Trust me, they would probably appreciate a couple of minutes for themselves anyway. Your interviewer will, without question, have literally just hung up on a previous call to jump straight on the interview with you. They probably won't have been to the bathroom for at least 4 hours themselves. So yeah, sure. If you need a break, just say it. Like, can I just get a couple of seconds just to take a quick trip to the washroom, the bathroom, the loo, as we would say here. No problem. Don't be embarrassed. They're human, you're human. Everybody knows that. Good luck. Fingers crossed for you. All right, so let's move on then. Okay. Right, just quickly for Vard. I'm so sorry. Vardman. I'm so sorry. I'm definitely sure I butchered that one. Just asking me questions about which leadership principles they'll focus on for an analytics and insight manager. So I try not to guess at what leadership principles will be focused on people's interviews, because although yes, there are some common leadership principles that you can be pretty confident fit into a particular skill set, they change massively between roles, even within a job family, because different teams are at different points in their nascencies. Different hiring managers are looking for different things from their employees. So I try not to guess, because if I guess wrong, then I send you up the garden path. So is that an expression that, do you have that expression? I'm assuming most of you are in the US here, but is that an expression that happens anywhere other than in England, up the garden path? Anyway, what I was going to say is, I mean, I'd be very, very confident that dive deep is going to be a leadership principle that they're going to care a lot about, but I'm pretty sure anybody on this call would be able to have told you that. Beyond that, I'm not making any guesses. What you need to do is, first of all, ask your recruiter if they'll tell you what the key leadership principles are. If they do, great. If they won't, some won't, you need to break down your job description. So there is a playlist on the YouTube channel that is a demo of me live. It was huge pressure, deconstructing job descriptions as people gave them to me. It will show you kind of what you need to look for in terms of being able to identify the language that's associated with each leadership principle. I would definitely suggest that you watch that and you try and deconstruct your own job description to identify the key leadership principles. I do offer a service where I can do that for you, but your first stop has to be a recruiter and then having a go at it yourself. All right. Oh, an EM was an engineering manager. Ah, okay. So that would be an SDM in Amazon terms, software development manager. All right. So, Alex, what have we got here? Okay. It looks like Alex has got a story to tell. Alex, ask your question. I don't see a question embedded in this. So I'm just popping this up here, Alex, so that you know it's you I'm talking about. Ask me a question, Alex. All right. Moving on then. Rick S., what have you got to say? Ah, okay. All right. What's the best way to start the salary negotiation? Yevgeny's going to be very sorry he's not here because he loves the salary negotiation questions after the initial offer. L6 US research in Berlin. Oh, Berlin. I'm desperate to go to Berlin. Okay, what could be a good anchor? Okay, so the backbone of any good negotiation is to have leverage. So your anchor, if that's what we're going to call it, needs to be the reasons why they should improve your offer. So you need to think about, what leverage do you have? Do you have other interviews coming up? Will you have to give up anything in terms of potential bonus or RSUs for your current company to move into Amazon? Are there incremental costs or losses associated with working in Amazon? Are you having to commute more than you do in your current role? So whatever your negotiation is, whether you want to increase it by 10,000 units, I don't know what unit. You're in Berlin, euros. Okay. Yeah. So whether you want to increase it by and challenge them to increase it by 10,000 euros, 20,000 euros, 30,000 euros, whatever it is, you have to have a reason why you think that the offer that they've given you needs to be improved on. So I hope that helps. Good luck with your negotiations, and maybe one day I will see you in Berlin. Okay. Yep, here's a question. Nick Peters again. So is the process any different from a graduate program and an L4 permanent position? Nope, not at all. The only difference is probably in the format of the interview. So if you're going in on the graduate program, you'll have a slightly different structure. So graduate program, you will have an interview where you're asked leadership principle questions. You'll also probably have to go through some kind of a group exercise where you're given a task and you have to work with the group in order to be able to complete that exercise, and you'll be assessed on that. So slightly different in terms of the actual mechanisms, I suppose, but ultimately they're still looking for the leadership principles. You're still going to have to sit down and deal with tell me about a time where there was a problem and you had to dive down several layers in order to be able to root cause the problem and then go and solve it. You can still expect that regardless whether it's an L4 permanent position or a graduate program. Okie dokie, moving on. Oh, a whole bunch of questions from Detour about compensation. So before I go on to those ones, I am going to say to you all, I have a favor to ask. I'm sure you realize that an enormous amount of effort goes into creating this channel for you. Each one of the 8 or 9 minute videos I put up probably takes about 4 hours for me to create from beginning to end, with all of my mistakes in my recordings and things. Clearly, I do it. I want to help you. That's why I'm here. That's why I set up the channel in the first place. But I do want to ask something in return from you, which is when you watch one of our videos, please take the millisecond that it takes to give it a thumbs up, or a couple more seconds, type a little comment. The reason why I need those is they're positive engagement signals into the YouTube algorithm. if the YouTube algorithm sees people giving content thumbs up or engaging with it, it says, okay, we're serving this content to the right person and they like that content. It will then push our content further up the algorithm. Why we need to do that is we want to get this content, good content, in front of as many people who need it. The YouTube algorithm has a bias towards old content because the more likes and comments something gets, the better the YouTube algorithm thinks it is. And if it's been around longer, it's going to get more likes and comments, right? It's a bit of a flawed kind of principle. So there's a whole bunch of really old, not very good content out there, even content from people who have never worked at Amazon, that appears very high up in the algorithm. So please, for everybody else who is going through this process, give them a little gift, thumbs up, or a little comment on whichever piece of content that you watch. And in that you're watching this content at the moment, I'm going to ask you to do that right now for this piece of content. And whilst you do that, I'm going to play you a little amusing video just because, hey, why not? Oh, I forgot to do the ticker. Oh, this always happens when Yevgeny's not here. I always forget the ticker. Yeah, little video. And whilst I'm playing that video, please do give it a little thumbs up. Here we go.
Like the stream, oh like the stream, oh like the stream, oh like the stream, like the stream, oh like the stream, oh like the stream, I like the stream, oh like the stream, oh like the stream, oh like the stream, like the stream, oh like the stream, oh like the stream, like the stream now, like the stream now, like the stream now, like the stream now.
There we go. It also gave me a chance to throw my tea down my throat as well. All right. So, okay, slightly weird and maybe slightly Monty Python, but hopefully that gave you enough time to give it a thumbs up. Lego my ego. Thank you. Yes. Smash the subscribe and like button. Please do. Okay. So please do keep giving your questions. I've got probably another 25 minutes. We don't need to use it all if we run out of questions, but just so you know, it's there before I have to jump in my car and take my daughter to her dance class. Right. Detour. Let's have a go and see what your questions are here. All right. If your counter offer is too high, will they just say no and go back to the original offer or improve the original offer for an in-between? Chances they withdraw the offer. Okay. So it's a negotiation. It's very unlikely that they will try and stick with the original offer. They will give you an original offer on the assumption that you will try to negotiate, right? In most roles, they are expecting candidates to negotiate, and in most roles, there is always going to be room for negotiation. The roles where there tends not to be room for negotiation is those grad roles, because basically all of the grads have the same level of experience. They're going to be working on very similar scope roles. So it's really, really hard to justify paying John the grad more than paying Amy the grad, or should do it the other way around to avoid sex bias. Amy the grad more than John the grad, when Amy and John both look exactly the same in terms of their career history, etc. But all other roles, you can expect they are expecting you to negotiate. Okay, so they're very unlikely to say no, refuse to negotiate. It's that offer or no offer, right? So chances are they will budge to a degree on one of the three aspects of the total compensation package when you tell them you want a higher offer. Okay, chances they withdraw the offer. Extremely unlikely that they will just say, oh, we've had enough of you. Off you go. We're going to go and pick the next person. Very, very unlikely. Unless you're incredibly rude, I think that's very unlikely. More likely is they will say, okay, this is now our best and final. We're not going to negotiate any further. So either accept the offer or please choose not to accept the offer, and then we can go and continue trying to find somebody else. That's not a withdrawn offer. That's a best and final. Now is the time to, I was going to say, sit on the potty, but maybe that's not right either. I have to be careful with these things. Now it's time to make a decision. So the only time offers ever really get withdrawn is horrible situations where something goes horribly wrong with kind of headcount and budget and stuff like that. But that's so rare. Or situations where, for example, they do background checks and someone has failed to disclose something like a criminal record, or it transpires that they've lied on their resume about their education or their qualifications. Those are the only times when really people have their offers withdrawn. Nobody withdraws an offer because you're negotiating for your compensation. I hope that helps. Good luck. Okay. Oh, wow. Cool. The record is Minimal Nation by Robert Hood, 1994. Oh, man. Kind of pioneering record in the modern techno music world. I'm going to Google that now. You learn so many interesting things doing this job. Meet so many people. That's cool. Thank you. Thanks for letting me know. All right. Keep going. Ah, Carl. Okay. Yeah. Here we go. So Carl wants to share with you all his favorite Gigi tip. So Gigi says, not a question, but a comment to those asking about LPs. Jolly good. One of your favorite vids that Gigi's done gives you the tip to ask the hiring manager what type of traits will make a successful candidate in this role. Yes, that's a great tip, Carl. I'm so proud of myself for coming up with it. Carl's right. So if you're trying to understand what key leadership principles are, especially if you're in the early rounds, round 1 or round 2, and you're hoping to make through to loop, asking your interviewer, ideally the hiring manager, what types of traits make a successful candidate in the role. Because Amazonians speak in the language of leadership principles, they will inevitably, I would put my money on 8 out of 10 times, start quoting the leadership principles to you. And for those 2 out of 10 that don't quote the leadership principles, they will probably describe the behaviors of the leadership principles. So if you're paying attention and you're writing down some notes, you should be able to derive from that what the most important leadership principles are to them. Carl, that's a really good tip to bring up. There we go. And Carl did it. Cool. So you got the top 4 LPs that are important for her role. There we go. Gigi knows what she's talking about. I'm telling you, people, you have to have faith. I do know what I'm talking about. Okay. All right. Let me just answer this one as well. Funky Man 831. Cool. Funky. Do people use funky anymore? A very 70s term. And I was born in the 70s. So I know you're probably shocked to hear that I was born in the 70s, but I was. Anyway, moving on. Late 70s, very, very late. If you smash the behavioral but don't quite meet the levels I put on my self-assessment, not quite sure I understand what that sentence means, but I'll keep going. Do you still have a chance? How do they determine if you meet 100, 200, 300 levels? Funky Man, I don't know what you're talking about, in brutal honesty. So I'm going to step back and summarize a little bit, and I'm going to rephrase your question in terms of how important is what is the mix between technical assessment and behavioral assessment? Because I get asked this question all the time. What weighting do these two things have? And as always, I have a video about it on the YouTube channel. But in summary, they're both equally important and mutually exclusive. So you have to do well on both of those elements to get hired. What they don't do is say, the total sum of what we're looking for equals 200. 2 parts, technical and behavioral, 100 each. 50 here, 50 here, put them together, 100 out of 200 equals pass fail. Doesn't work like that. You have to raise the bar on the leadership principles independently from being considered to be able to do your role functionally. If you are below what is required on either of those 2 areas, you are not going to get hired. So although I'm not quite sure I would have answered your question specifically, hopefully you get the spirit of what I'm saying to you, and then you can kind of contextualize that within a framework that you kind of know more about than I do in this sense. Great question, Nick Peters. During loop, should we expect questions that are very explicit? In what instance should you apply X leadership principle? No, you should never have that question. Now, don't tell. Sometimes there are very bad interviewers that ask very bad interview questions, and such bad interviewers I have heard of before who do something like that. But that is not a behavioral question. A behavioral question is asking someone to tell you a specific time when something happened, right? So thing is, like, earn trust as an example. Yes, it's a leadership principle, but there are, well, let's use customer obsession actually, because I'm going to give you a freebie at the end around customer obsession. So customer obsession is a leadership principle, sure, but customer obsession has effectively 4 different kind of flavors to it, which we have created a learning model around, and we call them facets. So customer obsession has actually 4 different facets around it. So a question that is as broad as, tell me about a time when you showed customer obsession. Well, is it coaching customer obsession? Is it anticipating customer obsession? Is it total commitment customer obsession? Is it championing customer obsession? Could be any of those. So the whole point is that you don't ask these kind of vague, open-ended questions. You are very specific. Tell me about a time where a customer wanted something and you felt they needed something else. What did you do? That's the type of question you should expect from an interviewer who is following best practice. Can't promise you that every single interviewer follows best practice, but most should. Okay. Okay. How many people do they choose to interview for the internship roles? Don't know is the answer. In fact, yeah, that's a good question. It's not often I say, Alice, that I don't know, because the usual process for Amazon is obviously that it's just a sausage machine, a conveyor belt, and you just keep interviewing and interviewing until you get to a person. But obviously, internships are a fixed period of time, and they have a fixed number of them. So I don't know, Alice, and I'll find out. I'll let you know. Sorry. I don't often say I don't know. That's an unusual experience for me. Ugh, don't like it. All right. Okay. Yeah. Funky man. How do they determine L5 versus L6 after the loop? You applied for both, right? So they don't. Okay. Most jobs aren't open-ended. It could be L5 or L6. Doesn't work that way. Most jobs have an L6 label on them or an L5 label of them. Okay, but I think you know that because you've told me you've applied for two different. Effectively, how do you determine if someone is raising the bar at that particular level? There are certain behaviors that you're looking for in a leadership principle, and those are very clearly denoted and documented in Amazon, and everybody has to follow those in terms of, is this strength in this particular leadership principle? Okay. The next kind of dimension they then look at to determine whether you are an L6 bar raising person is to really look at the scenarios that you've shared and the stories that you've told, and then look around kind of mentally, look around at the people that they work with on an everyday basis. And they're literally, very literally benchmarking the stories that you shared with their day-to-day experiences at Amazon. So a conversation that I would have at debrief and when I was bar raising is to say to people, right, okay, we say this person is bar raising. Tell me about the average performer in your team. Do you believe the average performer in your team would have done what Funky Man 831 has told us in his story? Do you believe only the top performer in your team could have possibly managed to do what Funky Man 831 managed to do in that scenario? And the answer to that question effectively tells you whether this person is raising the bar, because if enough people in the room say, the only people I can imagine achieving what Funky Man 831 did in the story he told us are my very, very best people, I can't see anybody else in my team being able to do what Funky Man 831 told me he did, then essentially you say, okay, this person is bar raising. Whereas if everyone around the room's going, yeah, I would expect that from all of my team, like that would be a bare minimum that I would expect from my team, you're not bar raising. So it's not as numerical as candidates would always love it to be. There is a certain amount of subjectivity / qualitativity around the decision-making process, but you are aiming to the kind of the definition is that you are better than 50% of the current people operating at that level in similar roles, and therefore the only thing to do is to reflect on the people that are working at that level in similar roles from all of the people that you have met, like 5, 6, 7 people, sometimes it's a smaller number if you're more junior, and come to a somewhat qualitative determination as to whether you are raising the bar or not. I hope that makes sense. And it's a bit of a long-winded explanation, but it's actually quite a challenging concept, even to get your head around, let alone articulate to a bunch of people who aren't talking back to me. All right, so where are we? We've still got 12 minutes. We've still got a couple of questions, so I'm going to keep going. Okay, here we go, Ahmed. So, hey, so after failing a phone interview 15 days ago, another recruiter wanted to chat with you for another role and set a 30 minutes call. Should I mention to him that you failed recently, or does he know? Yeah, they know already. This will not be news. They have found you by fishing through the ATS, you know, that thing that everyone says is a robot, fishing through the ATS, looking for people with profiles that meet what they're looking for. And they will have found you, they will have looked at your recruitment history on the ATS, and they will have seen very, very clearly and very, very quickly that you failed a phone interview 15 days ago. So you can bring it up if you want to, but you know, if you don't, it doesn't make any difference. One way or another, this person knows that that happened. Good luck. Hope it goes well. Okay, shown. Interesting question. Can we apply for more than 3 roles in a quarter internally for promotion? Does this number matter? Okay, so this is going to be a quite area specific question, because for most corporate roles, you don't apply for roles internally for promotion. Most corporate roles, you get a promotion in your current role. So I'm guessing, Shown, you might be in the operations space, because they play by a slightly different set of rules when it comes to promotions than the rest of corporate. I did not work in operations, and therefore I don't know some of the deep detail around their promotion structures, etc. So, there you go. You just said yes. I was right. You're in ops. So, Shown, I am not the best person to ask, because ops is a slightly different beast when it comes to the way they manage promotion. So, best person to talk to is your manager, Shown, or someone, your HRBP or something like that. But I'm excited that an Amazonian is here at one of my sessions. I always love it when Amazonians come along. You know, you've got to be good at what you do when someone from Amazon is coming and taking your advice. So me, it's all about me. Good luck, Joan. You know, maybe come back and tell me on the comments somewhere when you get the answer. Come back and tell me the answer, because then it fills out my knowledge set a bit. I know most things, but some things I don't. Okay. Is Amazon more or less the only tier 1 tech company that uses the concept of bar raising? Um, I would say in such overt terms, yes. You don't hear Apple, Netflix, Google, Microsoft talking overtly about the concept of having a bar raiser. They'll obviously all have some kind of concept of hiring the best candidates that they can get, but I don't think anybody at kind of in the Mang Fang, whatever you want to call it, space has mechanized, formulated, I'm quite sure what the right terminology for it is, their hiring process to the degree where they can clearly state exactly what defines, or nearly exactly what defines, the type of person that they're looking for. Now, that said, the concept of bar raisers, so the work that I did, is becoming much more common now, where lots and lots of companies are seeing the value of the concept of having this third party who has no skin in the game in terms of the actual role that's being hired, coming in and overseeing the process. So bar raisers is something that's becoming much more common, but raising the bar, I still think, is probably, from a specificity point of view, unique to Amazon or the Amazon kind of ecosystem. If anyone knows differently, let us know. We always love to learn. Right, what else? Okay, 7 minutes before my daughter comes barreling through the door telling me she needs to go to her dance class. Is it uncommon to meet with the hiring manager twice? No, it's very common. That is the standard practice. There we go, moving on. Okay, yeah, Vardman, yeah, that makes sense. So, right, cool. Yeah, you've got it. You understand. Great. Moving on then, I'm going to do a couple more. Okay, Nick again. So what can you expect from the first phone interview? I definitely have a video about this on the channel, so go check out the video on the channel. In broad summary, it's a bit of an anything goes type interview. When you get to Loop, because it's overseen by a bar raiser, it's very clearly structured. Everybody knows what they have to do, and you get a slap on the wrist from your bar raiser if you don't behave properly. Early rounds, round one and round two, are not overseen by a bar raiser. So quite often it's bandit country, as I call it. So you can expect almost anything. Some people will face those annoying introductory questions. Tell me about yourself. Why Amazon? Walk me through your resume. And may get behavioral questions, may get a functional question, but they could spend all their time on the introductory questions. Other interviews, introductory questions last seconds, and it's into let's do a full-on behavioral interview. Other ones could be a combination of behavioral or functional. Honestly, there is no firm requirement for that round one. The best thing you can do, Nick, is ask your recruiter. They will probably know the habits of the team that you are interviewing for, insofar as habits can exist, because obviously there are individuals involved and individuals often do their own thing, but they might be able to give you some sense of trends if they happen to know that interviewer quite well and they happen to know that interviewer's style. I can tell you for sure there would have been a load of recruiters out there that would have been able to quote very, very specifically how I approached my interviews, because they could see the notes from my interviews, and I'm very consistent and very structured and quite what's the word, set in my ways, put it that way. So ask your recruiter, they might be able to give you some insight. Cool, moving on. I'm an old dog, basically. Set in my ways, just an old dog who you can't teach new tricks to. Okay. Okay, Brench, quick one on this one. Okay, you haven't heard anything 2 weeks ago. You can see your application portal. You're still under consideration. What's my opinion on this? So do not trust that application portal. It's manually driven by recruiters. It's not automated in any way. So your recruiter basically has to take the outcome of your interview as expressed by the interviewer on the ATS system, and then go to the separate system and basically pick some things to change the status. It's so often utterly inaccurate. So I usually tell people just to ignore it. Follow up with your recruiter and try and get the actual answer from them. Don't assume anything from that stupid system. Okay. Okay. I don't understand this question. I don't understand it. Sorry. Okay, no, quick one from Alice. No, I've never hired on internships. No, can't tell you too much about that, I'm afraid. I feel there's an information gap I have here on internships, so I'm going to go away and try and plug that and catch up with some Amazon intern recruiters and see what I can get. Hey, Lego, my ego. All right, so what do I make of the recently announced retail corporate hiring freeze? See this coming to tech and other non-tech operations roles? Yes. So there's a difference between a freeze and a slowdown, right? So what's happened in retail is a decision has been made, and obviously at the top levels, total freeze, no hiring whatsoever, right? In other areas, they don't necessarily have to have a freeze in order for the rate of recruitment to slow down. So budgets can be removed, and therefore headcount has to be reduced, and therefore open recs closed. New requests for headcount that was in OP2 that were yet to be written up into business cases might then just kind of disappear, and people might not have the option. So I think the idea of freeze and slow down are distinct, but the outcome is still the same thing. So do I think that all areas of Amazon are going to be affected by a slowdown in hiring? Yeah, absolutely. There are teams that are obviously high growth teams that are still trying to achieve major goals. So, for example, if I think about Project Kuiper, they're trying to launch a whole bunch of satellites to have a deadline. have to launch those satellites. So they're going to hire whoever they need to hire in order to launch those satellites. But overall, as the economy shrinks, other units like, I don't know, I'm going to say AWS, there just won't be the consumer demand there, business consumer interchangeable concept, to justify keeping on growing the organization. So absolutely, I suspect hiring will slow down across the entirety of the Amazon business, across almost every country, probably not some of the smaller growth countries that are really kind of from a cost base insignificant in terms of their TLC requirements. But for the major countries, Europe, obviously Europe isn't a country, people, we know that, right? France, Spain, Italy, Germany, blah, 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 the UK, etc., regions, let's say, Europe, the US, fully would expect, probably Australasia as well, would fully expect them to be slowing down as well. All right. I'm going to pick one more question now because then I'm going to have to run and take Maeve to dance. So let me just quickly read what's left. Okay. Okay, yep, I'm going to do two and then I'm going to have to run. So Brent, you haven't had any response from a recruiter in terms of your outcome. I would suggest contacting the person who actually interviewed you. Reach out on LinkedIn and say to them very politely that it was great to meet them, blah, blah, blah. It's been a couple of weeks now. You haven't heard from the recruiter. Have they got any idea of, or maybe can they prompt your recruiter to make contact with you, would be my suggestion. Okay. And then this one, hi, you have Berlin again. So interview Berlin, senior investigation specialist. Do I know what level it is? You read it as L4, but still not sure. No, that should be an L6. Senior investigation specialist, I would imagine, is an L6. The nomenclature is usually investigation specialist would be an L5. Senior investigation specialist would be an L6, principal investigation specialist or senior manager investigations would be an L7. So if it's following the standard nomenclature, I would have plumped for L6, but there's no guarantees on that. Some teams don't follow the nomenclature, they come up with weird names, or they basically mess up the nomenclature and make it all very confusing. So if I was just looking at the name, I would say L6, but to get some validation, I would then look at the job description and see if there was any information about kind of years of experience that they were looking for, because that would be more of an indicator. I think there is definitely a video on the YouTube channel which talks about how you work out what level. I'm certain that's on the YouTube channel, so go check that out and it might help. Okay, so before my daughter comes running in telling me we have to go, literally I can hear her hand on the handle. There it goes. I want you to, oh, it's all right. Okay. Sorry about that, everybody. Right, please go to this URL here. There is an amazing giveaway at the end of that URL. That gives you a free course from Day One Careers, which is focused on the customer obsession leadership principle. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, the leadership principles are complex. They're not just one thing. You know that because you've read the giant descriptions of them. We've broken down the leadership principle to make learning them and understanding them much, much easier into this concept of facets. So this free course will tell you the 4 different facets of customer obsession. It will also tell you exactly what your interviewer is looking for in your answers. Exactly what they're looking for in your answers. I literally can't spell it out any clearer. And there is little mock interviews, me interviewing me, so you can see how it all comes together. Please go and take that. What it also does is give you access to our Discord community. Over 2,000 candidates in our Discord community, obviously not all interviewing right now. They help each other out. They do mock interviews. They ask each other questions, talk about their experiences, blah, blah, blah. So even if you don't want to actually watch the content, which you really, really should, the community in unto itself is an invaluable resource, totally, totally free. So please do go check that out. Thank you very much for joining. I am going to go now. Please do give this video a thumbs up. Please comment and thumbs up on any of our content that you see. Be very grateful. Good luck with your interviews coming up. And I will see you all on my own again next week. Have a great week, everybody. Please stay safe. It's lovely to see you or not see you. Bye.